Sam Smyers here. Today I want to talk about the Bus Force plugin by Arturia that you can find in their new FX Collection 2. So let's go ahead and jump into the video. Alright everyone, welcome back to the channel, and if you are new here, please consider giving this video a like and subscribe to the channel because that will help you stay updated with future videos that are just like this. If you're truly interested in improving your mixing skills, then check out my Modern Mix Academy. This is a full all-in mixing course that I created that will show you everything that I know about mixing and will show you how to make amazing mixes from the comfort of your own home that you can be proud to share with your friends, family, and fans. I'll put a link down below for you to check that out. Arturia just came out with their new FX Collection 2, which had a few new plugins in it, and one of the plugins that I wanted to go over is called the Bus Force plugin. This is a plugin that is meant to go on your master bus or sub buses or even individual tracks. Let's take a look at the plugin now. This is what it looks like when you open it up. Bus Force Parallel Processor. It has a lot of options for running things in parallel. We have the input trim here. This is going to be your bypass button. We have some knobs up here for adjusting the different parallel processing options. And then here is going to be the output trim. As you can see here, there are essentially three different parallel processes that you can run with this plugin. You have this first one, which can be the input or the dry path going into the clipper and then to the output. If I turn this EQ on, then the input goes into the EQ, and then through the clipper, if I turn this on here, that is going to be the mute button. Then I can blend this in with whatever signal that I want. Then we have the compression path and then the saturation path. If I want to turn these on and off, I could turn the EQ off here and then notice that the signal changes. If I turn this on, then it's going to go to the EQ and then down to the second chain and then also the third chain. Or I could turn it off, and then same thing with a filter, I could turn it off here. And then for this last chain, I could actually turn off the compressor. So it's nice to see actually what is happening visually here with the parallel processing. What I think I am going to do now for this test is focus on just running everything through this saturation path. I'll leave these two muted, and then I'll start adjusting some of the processing options on a guitar bus. Let me go ahead and play this guitar bus by itself. I'll solo it, and let's go ahead and bypass the plugin by hitting this power. Now that is the guitar bus. I have a couple of guitars in there, and I have the Bus Force on the bus. Let's turn it on, and let's go to our EQ here. As I select the EQ, then visually this changes to the EQ, and we can see what is happening. And I'll go ahead and make some adjustments on these knobs here. We have a low shelf, a high shelf, and then we have a bell filter in the middle. So there I just made some adjustments to the EQ, and let's go ahead and bypass this. And we have that nice spectrum analyzer there so we can see what is happening. And then you can go on to this filter here, which is going to allow you to use a high pass filter and a low pass filter. Let's bypass that. And I'm just cutting off some highs and some lows there. So now I've got the EQ and the filter. And now let's go ahead and move on to the compressor. The compressor, you have the attack, you have the release, you have a switch here to turn it into either stereo mode or dual mode. Dual mode will treat each channel separately. So you'll have your left channel and your right channel, and it will basically compress them independently of each other, whereas stereo will compress them both the same amount. The force here is obviously what the plugin is named after, and this is going to be your compression ratio, your threshold, your makeup. You've got a sidechain option here. For some reason, it's turned on automatically when you open up the plugin. The default option is to have it on. I'm going to go ahead and turn that off because I don't want to use the internal sidechain. You could also change it to be an external sidechain, and then you could audition it here. Let's go ahead and adjust our compressor and see what we can do with these guitars. Once again, visually, we've got the compressor here, and that's nice that we have the EQ next to the compressor so we can see what is happening. I'm adding some medium to heavy compression there with this ratio, and then as you can see this gain reduction being applied, these little LED lights start lighting up. And let's go ahead and check it out without the compressor on. And I was just adjusting that makeup gain. And then we can move on to our saturation here. We have an option for harmonics, overdrive, and then our makeup. We could change the harmonic type. We could do even, odd, or thick. Maybe I'll just do even there, and let's go ahead and increase this overdrive. So maybe I'll do something like that with a bit of saturation to those guitars, and let's test out this clipping here. And that clipping is going to be a bit of a harder sounding distortion. I might not use that. I'll just turn it off for now. And now I have a heavily compressed guitar with some saturation. What I can do is I can now blend in the original guitar by turning on this original path here and blending in the dry path. So there you heard as I was bypassing this and turning it on and off, I turned up that dry path and turned down that saturation path. Basically, now I'm using this bus force as a parallel processor, blending in a saturated and heavily compressed signal in with that original signal. One thing to note is that whenever you put the plugin on, the default setting is to set it into linear phase, which adds a bit of latency. You could also adjust it to be minimum phase, and if you're using this on a master, then maybe put it on linear phase. But if you're doing something like where I have it on a sub bus, or maybe if I put it on an individual track, then I would choose something like minimum phase. I really like plugins like this, which bundle a lot of different processing options into one instead of having to put on 5 different plugins and then adjust all the parallel processing options. I can just put on this bus force and then adjust everything from here. And everything looks really nice and clean, and all of the visuals that it has in it are pretty nice. You can see the spectrum analyzer and then the compressor, and then also the waveforms for the saturation. I think that's pretty cool, as well as showing you the signal flow of all of the parallel processing. Whenever I did a test of using the bus force on an individual track and then duplicated that track, I noticed that there was quite a lot of CPU usage. So what I did is I did a test. I put the bus force on an individual track and I duplicated that track 16 times. So I had 16 tracks with only bus force on it, and my CPU usage was about 30%. And then I increased the amount of tracks to 32, and then my CPU usage was about 60%. So this is a pretty CPU intensive plugin, and I would have liked to be able to use it on individual tracks, but this is too CPU intensive for me to use it in that way. So where I think I would find a use for this plugin would be using it on a sub bus. For example, in this example I showed you, I used it on a bus of some guitars, because then you're probably only using a few instances of it, and then you can just quickly dial in the settings that you want with this one plugin, and maybe you only have a few of them across your whole session. If I just take a look at it now, and let's go ahead and look at my CPU right now, The only plugin I have in this session is the bus force, and let's go ahead and play it. And notice that my CPU usage is going all the way up to about 20% or so with just one plugin on my session. And this is using my session at a buffer size of 2048. That's my max buffer size. So the CPU usage thing is quite disappointing. I don't know if I would ever recommend that you buy this separately, but if you do end up grabbing that FX Collection 2 by Arturia, check out this plugin and see if you can put it on a few buses, and hopefully it doesn't affect your CPU too much, and hopefully you have a more powerful computer than I do. But this is at my max buffer size of 2048, and I'll go ahead and put my computer specs down below so you can see what I am running versus what you might be running. All right, everyone, so that is my review of the Bus Force plugin by Arturia. If you enjoyed this video, please go ahead and give it a like and subscribe to my channel, because that will help you stay updated with future videos that are just like this. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.